I have a friend who works in a morgue, and I've asked them if they have experienced anything weird. Little did I know, they have experienced enough to make me question how they are still sane. But when you work in a morgue, the line between the living and the dead isn't as clear as you like to think. There are things that lurk in the quiet corners of the night, waiting for their moment to make themselves known. Tonight, I'll share with you some eerie encounters of my friend, who stood face to face with what most of us only dare to imagine. A friend who's learned the hard way that some spirits never truly rest. So if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on this one. I worked a night shift in the morgue at a fairly large hospital. I won't say where for privacy reasons, but let's just say it has a reputation among staff for being active. You'd be surprised how many of the staff members refuse to come down here alone, even the ones that say they don't believe in ghosts, which, if I'm being honest, if you don't believe in them, then why are you scared? But I digress. Over the years, security officers, nurses, and even some of the doctors have shared stories of their experiences, including strange whispers, shadows moving in the corners just out of sight, and cold spots out of nowhere. I used to shrug it all off, thinking it was just overactive imaginations at play, but then I started experiencing things myself. I've had a few eerie encounters since starting this job, but there was this one night. That night was the first time I actually considered quitting. It was around 2 a.m. and I was finishing up paperwork when I heard a metallic clang from the back of the room where we keep the body storage units. Now, these things are heavy and they just don't move on their own. I thought maybe I didn't close one all the way, so I got up to go check. Sure enough, one of the doors was open, just a crack. See, here's the thing. I know I locked that unit earlier. How, you ask? Well, because I usually close it and then slam my hand on it 3 times to make sure it's shut. So I pushed it shut, locked it again, and went back to my desk. I didn't even sit down all the way when I heard the sound again. I turned around, and the same unit was open. At this point, my skin was crawling. I stepped closer, and I swear the temp in that area was freezing. I could see my own breath, which is not normal for this room. The air had this thick, heavy feeling, like when you know someone is standing behind you, and you just don't want to turn around to look. I reached out, gripped the handle, and as I start to push it closed, I hear a whisper right in my ear. It was so quiet, yet clear as day. Help me. I swear on my life I felt something. No, someone standing next to me. I bolted. Nope, no shame in admitting it. I ran like the pussy that I am. Up to this point, I've only experienced cold spots, strange sounds, but never a voice or the presence of something that wasn't there. I have never left the morgue so fast in my life. I went upstairs, grabbed a coffee, and sat in the break room until my hands stopped shaking. I told one of the older ER nurses what happened, and she just nodded, completely unfazed. Apparently, that unit has a history. She told me a patient had died there a few years before I started working here, under pretty tragic circumstances, and since then, multiple staff have heard the same whispered words. So, I finished my shift, but I didn't want to go back there alone. I'm seriously wondering if I should start carrying a recorder with me, but I don't want to get in trouble, HIPAA and all. I've got plenty more stories, and if you guys are interested, I'll give more updates when something creepy happens again, because trust me, it will. The current time is 8 a.m. I just got back from work and I need to get this off my chest before I go crazy. Last night, when the other assistant went on break, I was alone in the office. It was a quiet night, with only one arrival that came before my shift. It was around 1:30 a.m. and I started hearing a faint tapping sound. I thought nothing of it because, honestly, I thought it was just the pipes and I've learned to just ignore those. But then it became rhythmic, coming in threes. So I sat up and listened, it stopped. I went back to doing what I was doing, and after a few minutes, it started again. This time, it sounded like it was coming from inside cold storage. I honestly started questioning my sanity because nothing in cold storage should be tapping, but I got up and walked over there. Nothing looked out of place, and just as I was about to step back, I noticed something. The drawer that contained the body from earlier was open slightly. Now, let me be clear again on this. These doors don't just pop open on their own. You have to unlatch them and pull. A knot formed in my stomach, but I stepped forward anyway. I took a deep breath before grabbing the handle and opening it up all the way. I looked inside, but didn't see anything, so I closed it up and started walking back. A few steps in, and the tapping started again, and this time I heard the damn door open. I just stood there, half looking over my shoulder and not wanting to look back, but I knew I had to. So, another deep breath, and I turned around. Chills ran all over my body when I saw it was open again. I went back this time. I pulled the drawer with the body out, and I don't know how I didn't shit myself, but the body's eyes were open. I checked the body earlier, and I know they were closed. I just don't have it in me to leave them with open eyes. I always close them if they are open. So, I ran my hand over their face and closed them again, and just as I did, I heard a whisper from in front of me, a voice so soft I almost didn't register what was said. Not yet. This time, I screamed and spun around covering my ears, but the room was empty, just me, the body, and the buzzing fluorescent lights overhead. I slammed the drawer shut, locked the cold storage, and ran back to the desk and put my headphones on to drown out any other noise. After my coworker came back, I told her what happened, and she just sat there staring back at cold storage. She said if that ever happened to her, she would just have noped her behind back to her car and home. I would love to say that that was the end of it, but I think we all know that's not true. Anyway, I'll keep you all posted if anything else happens. Also, if you're wondering why I haven't quit, well, yeah, it's scary, but you know what? It's only been little occurrences like this. I don't feel threatened or anything. I guess if it does come to that, then I'll cross that bridge when it's built. Hey everyone, this final story is from one of the doctors my friend works with. I have permission from him to retell it, so I hope you enjoy. Please note, his name will be changed. Hey Chica, I've got another one for you. This one isn't mine though, it's from Dr. Feelgood, so hopefully your subscribers enjoy it. Dr. Feelgood has been working at this hospital for nearly 15 years, and he swears he's not the type to believe in ghosts. Even after this experience, he still swears they don't exist, but okay. He says this happened to him during a late night shift a few years back. It was around 3 in the morning, and the ER had finally settled after a hectic night. He had just finished the paperwork and was about to go grab some coffee when he noticed the light was on for one of the beds. All the nurses were busy, so he went to check on the patient himself. He walked over and saw an elderly woman sitting on the bed with her back to him. Her hair was thin and wavy, and she wore a pale hospital gown. He thought this was odd because no one would have a hospital gown in the ER. He looked around for a chart, but there wasn't one. He stepped closer and asked if she needed help. The woman slowly turned her head toward him, and he noticed her eyes were sunken, dark, and her mouth was slightly open as if she was trying to form words. Then, in a small voice, she said, "She needs to go home." The doctor said he felt a chill crawl up his spine, and he turned around and called one of the nurses over. As he did, he felt a cold breeze blow right by him. When the nurse came over, he asked her who the lady was and why wasn't there a chart on her. The nurse looked at him and was like, "What lady?" The doctor turned around, and the bed was empty, sheets undisturbed. The room was just as it had been left after they wheeled out the last patient. He said he was shaken, but left the room and just rationalized it as being exhausted from the night. He still says he doesn't believe in ghosts, but does admit that it was a strange occurrence and was okay with sharing. I'll be back with more stories soon, because we all know that hospitals are just teeming with good stories. So what do you guys think? Would you be a believer if this ever happened to you? Or would you just chalk it up to being tired? Let me know down in the comments how you feel about it. And if you want to hear more of these strange occurrences, let me know. See you soon.